Hello, good morning. Good morning from New York. Good morning from my cat, or my cat's butt, showing you his best side. Um, I'm very happy to be here and talking to you guys. I'm very excited to see the activity in the group, and uh, I'm really hopeful that we can create this community that talks about important topics in yoga teaching and in yoga anatomy, and just really in getting to know and appreciate and celebrate our bodies on every level. Yeah. So today I'd really love to talk about the top 3 essentials for a yoga teacher to know, to understand, or to embody. And in all of my trainings that I do, we really come back to these 3 pillars, these 3 really important pillars in yoga teaching. And while we do study the nitty gritty of the bones and the muscles and the glands and the nervous system and the breathing and all the bits and bobs, I think the overarching principle are these 3 topics, these 3 things, these 3 essentials. So, number 1 is that we are all wildly different, wildly unique, and wonderfully so. So, I think we get fooled because we look at anatomy textbooks and plastic skeletal models and really cool looking anatomical models. And it tricks us into thinking that we all are this kind of cookie cutter image, right? We're all this cookie cutter, we're all very similar. Right? We all look the same, and we know instinctually that this has to be incorrect, right? If you're human and have been thoughtfully moving through this world, you start to notice that everyone is very different. Their backgrounds, where they grew up, their culture, their religion, their cultural identity, their backgrounds, their constitutions, Ayurvedically, their bank account balance, wildly different from person to person, and that informs how they move through the world. And even on a skeletal level, so even beyond like the flesh body that you might be able to see is different between, say, you and me, on a skeletal level, we are wildly different. How our bones fit together, our lumpy, bumpy parts of the bones, how they project in their direction and orientation are wildly different, and that's going to make a huge difference on how a posture shows up in the world, right? And I like to think that there's actually, we get so um, myopic as yoga teachers when we learn to teach things like a posture, a downward facing dog, and we learn our hands go here, our feet goes here, this is the alignment. We even start to get a little fussier and we say, okay, warrior 1, the back foot has to be at a 45-degree angle. We talk quite a lot about alignment, right, for these postures, and then how do we modify the posture to fit all these humans that are in our room. I think that's in error. I think we need to change our direction here. Instead of what is the alignment of the pose, rather thinking what are we aligning to? So whether that's a body part to another body part, what is the alignment of our thighs to our knees, or our knees to the floor, right? Or what is the alignment to the force of gravity? What is the alignment of you to me, of me to you? What is our alignment to our breath, right? What are we aligning to rather than what is the cookie cutter alignment that I have to fit myself into? Because just by the rule of everyone is different, it's not going to match up for the people that are in your room, right? What are we aligning to? Right? And then we can go a step deeper, and instead of saying like, what is the modification? How do we adapt the posture to fit what is already perfect, what is already in alignment, what is already real and magical, which is you, You are the magic, right? Not the posture, not some alignment that's in some book, right? How do we adapt that amorphous concept to fit the individual, right? To fit you, right? In all of your perfect uniqueness. Right? So I really kind of dislike that word modification, because if you say, well, if you can't get your hands to the floor, you can modify by taking a block. Well, who the heck wants to modify, right? In some respect, your student is hearing, I'm not good enough, and I will postpone my presence until I get my hand to the floor, right? I will postpone showing up in this moment until I get to some place that's been arbitrarily designed, right? So instead, how can I adapt these postures to fit me, to be in alignment with me, right? So the first rule is everyone is wildly, wildly different. And in the training, we're going to look at bones. We're going to look at, this is always so weird when I pull it up. We're going to look at real bones, real skeletal alignment, because sometimes when you're used to seeing the plastic things, you forget, all those plastic things were made in a factory with 100,000 other identical matches. So when you see actually real bones, like say these real femurs, you start to see, oops, camera went a little fuzzy, but you start to see that one, the neck of the femur is going to show up differently from person to person, right? And that's going to make a wild amount of difference in what kind of movement is available in those two individuals. So we'll start to refine that knowledge in the training and look at what is skeletally available, and thusly that's it, that's what you got, or what is muscularly available, right? Or muscular contraction that we could eventually perhaps get more range of motion from, right? It's important to know what is muscular, which means might be changeable, or skeletal, which means ain't changeable, right? So that we don't start to require the same movement from two different individuals, right? Or from our classroom of unique bodies, right? That instead we adapt the practice to fit each and every constitution and body and human uniqueness that we find, right? Everyone is wildly different. The number two is that everything is connected, right? I think sometimes, again, when we study anatomy, we can get very myopic. When we study yoga, we can get very myopic into saying, today we're going to look at the muscular system. Tomorrow we're going to look at the skeletal system. Day after that, we're going to look at the energy body. Day after that, we're going to look at how the foot works, or day after that, we're going to look at the sutras. And we start to organize things into separate categories. One of my teachers, Gil Headley, says the mind will insist on duality when it's an illusion. No duality actually exists, right? So it makes it easier for us to put things in categories. This muscle, this bone, this gland, this chakra, right? All in different categories. It makes a very neat notebook, right? Which I love. And yet, keeping our view large, it is impossible to extricate those things. It is impossible to separate. You can do it with your words. You could do it with a scalpel. You could do it in your notebook. But no separation actually exists. We know this, again, instinctually, but we somehow forget when we're studying that by affecting the body, you're affecting the breath. You're affecting your energy. And conversely, vice versa. By affecting your energy, you have an effect on the breath, you have an effect on the body. Yeah? Even a step deeper, our muscles. We love to say, and I used to teach this way. You guys would have hated this 25 years ago when I used to teach like this muscle or the origin is here, the insertion is here, right? Starts here, finishes here. and it has this action, and you do, when you're doing Chaturanga Dandasana, you're using this muscle, right? It's lies. And we get tricked because we see this in beautiful yoga anatomy books. We see it in, I used to have this muscular chart, a muscle man, that I had when I was a kid, and it had all the labels, like this muscle and this origin and insertion, and it was like hundreds of muscles on this muscle man front and back. And I used to love to, weird kid, still a weird adult, but I used to love to memorize. Okay, this muscle begins here and here, and this is the Latin root of the word, and it's lies. When you actually see a real body, whether you're doing a cadaver dissection or a surgery or anything like that, you start to recognize those lines are arbitrary. They don't exist in the body. Everything is interconnected and interwoven. Some of the lines make sense. They're kind of, this muscle is known to do this, like your thoracic diaphragm. It's known to do breathing, right? The prime mover of respiration. Your psoas muscle, big hip flexor muscle. It's known to be the prime mover of hip flexion. But, when you see it in a body, there's no separation between those two muscles. It's arbitrary, right? And so by affecting the breath, you have an effect on the hips. By affecting your hips and movement, you have an effect on your breath. And it's an important thing when we're studying yoga anatomy, right? That we remember the interconnectedness, because we need that memory when we're talking about the philosophy of yoga. I can do all this self-study on me, right? And I can do all of this kind of introspection on me, but we are all connected, right? We have to keep kind of blowing up our view to remember that interconnectedness on whatever level we're appreciating it on. Yeah. Number 3, no matter how smart you are, we're all extremely smart. We've all been studying all these different ways of moving our body, of the philosophy, of the yoga anatomy, of biomechanics, of all the little things that we're picking up along our way on our yoga journey. We can get very, very, very smart and want and become desirous of more information and more information and more information. What is the therapeutic sequence for knee trouble? What is the therapeutic sequence for constipation? How do we bring about more pran or more udana? Or we get very interested in kind of gathering up information, and then we just start kind of pushing information on people, trying to fix people like little paper dolls. No matter how smart you get, presence always beats smarts. No matter how smart your sequence, how much information you have, and with great intentions want to give out to your student to say fix their problem, can't do that. But we start thinking we can. Presence will always beat out intelligence, right, or smarts. And what I mean by that is when we are able to, yes, learn, yes, gather up information, yes, study, and then when we're with someone, drop all of it so that we can just arrive 100% present. So we're in the space of, I see you, I hear you, I'm with you. That's when the transformation happens. Not by me just spitting out information, but when I can actually land present and then I can receive, right? Then we can have a two-way communication. And the only way that you can arrive present is by practice of presence, your own personal practice. And I think as teachers, sometimes we start teaching a lot, and our own practice suffers, right? We think, well, I just need a little bit, right? when we can up our level of practice, we can know who we are, we can have the tools to keep tethering back to this moment, to the place where we are, the presence in the pose, the presence in the breath, then we can be present with others. Then we can be present in the yoga room or in the virtual yoga room, right? Then we can show up. And in that showing up, that trumps any book smarts you'll ever learn. Yeah. It's a process, it's a continuing process, and I'd love to share more with you. Please pop in questions over this next week, and I'd love to share more. But those three are really what I find most valuable today. Yeah. If any of this resonates with you, we have a essentials, meta anatomy essentials training coming up October 5th through the 9th. It involves audio content that I send you and also live calls for 5 days, 2 hours a day. And if you can't make those live calls, I can send you the recordings, no big deal. But I'd love to be in conversation with you and share. All the info is on my website, kristenleal.com. And while you're there, there's a free workshop, a video on the nervous system, couple-hour workshop on the nervous system and stress. So my gift to you. And I look forward to connecting with you.